Nightingale has had one hell of a run since their Realms Rebuilt update. The player numbers have massively spiked, which is great news, and they're continually adding new things and improving, as well as getting bug fixes out as quickly as possible. Now, it is an online game, so they do need to take the servers offline to do server maintenance. That happens, I think, every fortnight, and today we've just had another big update. This is 0.5.2, and it comes with tons and tons of fixes to art, visual, building, crafting, NPCs, quests, resources, UI, and much more. Alongside that, there's a ton of game changes and progression blocking fixes, which is great news. The Inflection team have done an absolutely outstanding job since the Realms Rebuilt update. Now, if you don't know how this works, obviously if you are playing offline, you will still need to update the game for all of these to actually work. If you are playing online, it won't make any difference because the maintenance would have concluded and you will be able to now play, which is great news. So you still do have to update regardless, but if you're offline, you don't have to do it right now. Now, this update is the 0.5.2 server maintenance update with loads of cool stuff in there. If you are a fan of Nightingale and survival games, subscribe to the channel, drop a like on the video, and stick around for much more Nightingale. We cover it every single Sunday with a little bit of gameplay, and we also cover the maintenance updates, as well as loads of other little bits and bobs. That sounds good, you know what to do, fondle those buttons. Now, 0.5.2. First things first is the bug fixes and progression blockers. Now, obviously, any progression blocker in a game is extremely annoying because, well, the clue's in the name, it blocks your progression. Now they have fixed the Shaylax Yoke, which is a Scarab boss, and this takes some refresher courses, so it should no longer lose aggro and become unresponsive. They've also renewed the magic in the inactive Desert Vault glyph, so now it should work as intended and allow players to complete the puzzles. They've also given Puck a stern talking to, and he will now appear more consistently when quests are complete, especially in the Hollowed Maw. So great news, progression fixes, always good in any game. Starfield needs a hell of a lot of those, but I'm glad that Nightingale has got some good shit in there. So for art and visual, they've got the paints rematched, so the Regency tile set is now the same colour in all realms, and a Desert Gauntlet realm POI has had its setting dressing replaced, making it a good date spot despite the bound nearby. There's also a load of fixes to building. Turns out plant pots and plots were haunted by vengeful tree spirits, and we've cleansed them so the invincible trees no longer spawn near any pots or planters. If you do have this issue, please use the build mode, which is defaulted to the X key, and completely remove any cursed pots and plants. Try logging out if you are playing in online mode. Wait 10 minutes for the server to completely shut down, and then log back in to see if that has resolved it. If that is it, rebuild with your less cursed plant and pots. So that basically is any trees and stuff that were growing where you were trying to plant things, they were basically undestroyable, which is quite irritating when you are looking for that perfect looking and pretty base. Now they've addressed that, so as mentioned, delete any of your old pots if you're still having the issue, log out and then log back in, and it should work perfectly fine. They've also took care of the Fae Trickster that caused Realmwalkers to come across invisible buildings, especially when returning to your Respite realms. Then, in the same genre, we've got some crafting fixes too, such as charms and items like that are no longer reducing gear score when you apply them to items, which is good because charms are meant to make things better. Reducing a gear score, not making things better, making things shit. When it comes to NPCs, pillars should no longer block Shaylax Yoke from spawning, and recruited NPCs no longer stop working if the players sleep, which is good because we like our little grinders, our little NPCs and companions that will continually work for us whilst we sleep. It's great. It's a shame we can't hire loads of them to literally farm everything around the Respite realm, which would be quite nice. But for quests, they've also talked to the observatory management in Welkin's Reach, and it will now reopen if players reset the realm and have completed Chasing for Stars, the quest. They've also removed the remaining supply of Tier 4 infusion rewards as they were past the expiry date and invalid. For the UI, HP bars now sync in multiplayer, and the Add Selected button in the fuel menu will now function as expected. Now, if you do have any issues, make sure you report them to the team on either their socials, on their Discord, or through Steam itself, because that is the best way to get things fixed and working. It's really annoying when people complain about things, but they haven't tried to fix the issue. If you do have an issue, just report it to the team. These guys are really good at trying to get things fixed as quickly as possible. So do report it, and it should work out. Now, when it comes to changes, there's been a few things in the actual gameplay itself, such as art and powering up light sources will now be brighter at night. NPCs, Nelly no longer requires the player to ask multiple questions to progress her dialogue. Alan Quatermain will no longer cheap out on essence and reward tier 4 instead of tier 3. And using the teleporter at sites of power will now respawn bosses as long as other players are not in the boss area. For the player, they've added the option to toggle sprint in the control menu so players can shift to sprint as long as they have the stamina to do so. Which is good. You don't have to hold it. You don't have to get numb fingers. You can do other things with your fingers. I don't know, pick your nose, do whatever you want to do. And then for miscellaneous, they've realigned collision on the crossway glyphs, increased collision on Welkin's Reach Hope Gate, and glyphs in the Abeyance Site of Power will no longer appear behind bustable walls, and chest with rewards can now be found in such locations instead. So that is good. If you do go to a site of power, some of the walls have sort of cracks in them, and that means they are destructible. That's the word. You can then destroy those and then get behind it for some either loot or parts of the missions. Now they've removed that because they can be quite hard to see if if you don't know they're there, basically, if you've not seen them before. And in some walls, they do look quite just normal and blended in with the environment, so it does make it difficult to actually come across a few of them if you're not looking hard enough for them. And in some of the sites of power, they are quite big, so it can be a pain to find every single one. So I'm glad they've addressed that. That does make things a little bit more streamlined in some of those sites of power. And the team wrap up by saying thank you for all of the patience and for joining us on this journey, the Nightingale team. And it's great, this update is good, it adds loads of beautiful fixes and of course a few quality of life improvements, which is always good news. Any quality of life is always good in any game, and I like that they are working hard to make this game as good as they possibly can. Now when it comes to the player count, it is absolutely great news. I love that the numbers are going up. As you can see here, those numbers are peaking with 1,846 average players, and over the last 30 days, that is still going strong. I do hope that that continues, that momentum does just follow on and on and on, because so far, I think it's absolutely brilliant what they've done. The Realms Rebuilt update has completely changed the game. I do think if it was released in that form, it probably would have done a hell of a lot better. The game did launch to over 40,000 players, which is great, but it's a shame those numbers couldn't stay in the sort of 20 to 30,000s. And I do love Nightingale, and I think it deserves a bit more praise. Obviously, the start was very rocky. There was a few things and issues, but they've worked past that, and they are making the game better and responding to the players, which is great news. All the guys over at Inflection, pretty damn cool. Met a couple of them. As some of you may know, I was in the testing phases of the game, and it was really enjoyable back then. But I think playing through, it's not something that I don't think I'd do it again, because playing through all of it and all the different builds and doing everything and then restarting the game kind of took away the hype for me a little bit, which it was a little bit disappointing. But overall, though, now I think the game is a million times better than what it was at launch. And only upwards, really. I hope that it continues to improve and the player numbers continue to go up, because then they will continue working on it, improving on it, and making the game better as a whole. Now, thank you for watching. Hopefully you've all enjoyed. If you are a fan of Nightingale and survival games, subscribe to the channel. If you're a fan of Bethesda and space-related games, check out the second channel, The Space Cowboy. Loads of cool stuff on that channel, covering the Shattered Space DLC at the minute. And we're going to be covering a little bit, potentially, of Star Citizen in the future. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, though. For now, though, thanks for watching. I've been Wad. You've been awesome, and we'll see you in the next one.